Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something pretty interesting today, overcoming fear and building confidence.
Sounds a bit broad, maybe.
Well, yeah, but we've got these two sources that take totally different approaches. One's like this super practical article from a school website,
Okay.
and the other one's excerpts from a woman's blog about like finding her own boldness. Well, it's more personal, you know?
Interesting combo.
Right. But they actually connect in some surprising ways. Like, both of them emphasize right off the bat that you got to understand your fears, not just try to like run away from them.
Yeah, facing them head on. Makes sense.
Exactly. And this article, it had this crazy stat. 60% of people avoid going after their goals because they're scared of failing. 60%.
Wow. I mean, it's definitely relatable.
Right. Have you ever felt like held back by fear?
Oh, absolutely. But the article actually gives some really good advice for dealing with that, and it's something the blog author, her story, just like embodies it.
Oh, how so?
Well, they both talk about breaking fears down into smaller steps, so it's less overwhelming.
Okay, so it's like instead of looking at the whole mountain, you're just figuring out that first little hill.
Exactly. So like public speaking, right? If that's your fear, maybe start with just a small group, friends or something.
Yeah.
Then as you get comfortable,
But kind of level up.
exactly, you gradually increase the audience size, build that confidence.
I like that. And in the blog, the author, she's really open about her own struggles, especially with her son. He had some challenges and
She didn't shy away from it,
not at all. She like jumped in headfirst.
which is pretty powerful, honestly. Her story shows how facing those tough situations can make you more resilient.
Totally. But taking action, it's always easier said than done, right? That's where the article brings up this growth mindset thing. It's from Carol Dweck's work, I think.
Oh yeah, the idea that your abilities can develop, it's not just about talent you're born with.
So you can learn and grow even when things are hard.
Right. Challenges become opportunities, not roadblocks.
Makes sense. And it's not just a nice idea. The article actually mentions this Harvard Business Review study. People with a growth mindset, they're 30% more resilient when facing obstacles. 30%.
It's a big difference.
I'm curious, though, did the blog author ever actually mention a growth mindset?
Hmm. Not directly, but her whole journey kind of reflects it. Like, at first she was overwhelmed, right? Dealing with her son's struggles. But as she took action, even when it was scary.
She started to see what she was capable of.
Exactly. So her actions built that belief in herself.
It's like a positive feedback loop. You take action, you see results, and you get more confident to take more action.
Yeah. And that connects back to what the article said about setting small, achievable goals. They cite the American Psychological Association. Those small wins, they boost your self-esteem, your confidence.
Yeah, because it's not about doing everything perfectly right away. It's those little steps forward. It makes me think about, like, what areas in my own life could I take more action in, even if it's a little scary?
That's where the calculated risk concept comes in. The article goes into that a lot.
So not just being reckless, but actually thinking it through.
Yeah, weighing the potential good and bad. What's the best that could happen? What's the worst? Like, can I handle that worst case scenario?
And is the potential reward worth it?
Right. And get this. The article mentions a Stanford study. People who take calculated risks, they're 45% more likely to succeed professionally.
Wow, 45%. That's huge. It kind of makes you want to take more risks.
Right? It could be anything. Starting that side business, having that tough conversation you've been putting off.
Yeah, but it's all about assessing those benefits, the potential downsides, and then making a smart decision.
Informed action, not just blind leaps.
Makes sense. But, both sources also acknowledge that everyone makes mistakes. It's what you do with those mistakes that counts.
Absolutely.
The article actually had this stat, I think it was from an entrepreneur survey. Something like 90% of successful entrepreneurs had failed at least once before making it big.
Yeah, failing isn't the opposite of success. It's often a stepping stone.
Right. The blog author, her story really shows that too.
Oh, definitely.
What were some of the setbacks she faced?
Well, there were a lot, especially with her son and his addiction. There were times she wanted to give up, doubted herself.
I can imagine.
But she kept going, learned from each experience, and changed her approach as guide.
So it wasn't about having all the answers right away, but being open to adapting and learning along the way.
Exactly. And both sources talk about how crucial it is to have a good support system, people who believe in you.
Your cheerleaders, your sounding board, that safe space to just like be vulnerable.
It makes a huge difference. The article even mentions this study from the APA. People with strong social support are 75% more likely to overcome challenges.
75%. Wow. Makes you think about who you surround yourself with. Are they lifting you up or bringing you down?
It's something to be mindful of for sure. Seek out those positive influences. Having that network can make the difference between giving up and pushing through.
Yeah, like having a team in your corner cheering you on. The school article also talks about mindfulness, emotional resilience, stuff like meditation, breathing exercises.
Creating that inner calm, which is so important when you're dealing with fear. And it's backed by research. The article mentions a Journal of Psychological Science study. People who practice mindfulness are 20% less likely to experience stress.
20% less stress. Sign me up. Did the blog author mention anything about, like, finding inner peace or managing stress?
Hmm. She doesn't use those exact terms, but she does talk about her faith, her trust in God. Describes it as a source of strength, especially during those really tough times.
So it's like finding that anchor when everything else is spinning out of control.
Exactly. Cultivating that inner resilience. And different people find that in different ways. Some through mindfulness, others through faith, community.
It's all about finding what works for you. Which actually brings us to a good point to transition into part 2 of our deep dive. We've talked about understanding fears, building a growth mindset, taking action, learning from our mistakes.
A lot of good stuff.
But in the blog, the author also brings up this interesting idea about personal style, especially when handling like confrontations,
Right,
challenges.
those clothing personalities.
Yeah.
Kind of a unique way to look at it.
Yeah, she uses 6 of them to describe how people approach tough situations.
Some are naturally more assertive, others more sensitive. And she says understanding your own tendencies is key to like finding your boldest self.
So, okay, these clothing personalities, how do they connect to like overcoming fear? It seems like we've jumped from general advice to something way more, I don't know, stylistic.
She makes this interesting point. She says, just like, you wouldn't wear clothes that don't fit your personality.
Yeah.
You shouldn't try to be bold in a way that just feels unnatural.
So instead of trying to become someone you're not.
Embrace your own style.
Okay, I got it.
And she uses this really powerful example from her own life. Raising her son, he had a tough time with addiction. And she talks about how at first she was really timid, afraid, especially when she had to confront his anger.
I bet. Parenting teenagers is hard enough as it is.
No kidding. But she's really honest about her own journey. Finding her voice, her courage through all that.
So she had to confront her own fears, too.
Absolutely. Learning to let go of control, trusting that her son would, find his way.
Must have been tough finding that balance, loving him, but also setting boundaries.
It was. She talks about the pain, the fear of losing him, in every sense.
Yeah.
But she also talks about grace, forgiveness for herself and for him.
Powerful stuff. It reminds me, we all make mistakes, and often it's those messy experiences that help us grow.
Exactly. And her whole point is understanding yourself, your strengths, weaknesses, those tendencies.
Yeah.
It's crucial for finding your, true boldness.
Mm.
She compares it to, dressing for your personality. You can't express yourself if you don't know your own style.
Okay, I like that analogy. But so how does she actually define these clothing personalities? Is it like literal clothes? Or is it more of a metaphor?
Totally metaphorical. She has 6 different ones.
Mhm.
Dramatic, classic, romantic, natural, gaming, and ingenue. Each one has unique strengths, different ways of approaching challenges.
Okay, so like example.
Well, dramatics, they're naturally bold, assertive. Romantics, they might be more sensitive, empathetic.
So a dramatic might just dive right into a confrontation, but a romantic might handle it more, like gently.
Exactly. And she says neither approach is better or worse.
Hmm.
It's about knowing your style, using it to your advantage.
Makes sense. So it's not about fitting into some mold, but using what you already have. So let's say you're someone who identifies more with the romantic style. Does she give advice on how to be bold in a way that feels authentic for them?
Yeah, she says boldness for a romantic might look different than for a dramatic, right? It could be setting boundaries, but with kindness, advocating for yourself, but gently, or using your empathy to connect with people, build strong relationships.
It's like speak softly, but carry a big stick. You can be strong without being aggressive.
Right. And she also encourages people, especially those who struggle to be bold, to lean on their faith. She actually quotes a verse from Psalms. In God I have put my trust. I will not be afraid. What can man do to me?
It's a good reminder we don't have to face our fears alone.
We can draw strength from so many places. Faith, community, even just our own inner resilience.
And she ends with this really beautiful call to action. She says, if you are strong, let him use this to make you boldly sensitive. If you are sensitive, let him use this to make you stronger.
Love that.
It's about growth, transformation, embrace who you are, the good and the bad, and use those experiences to become more, I don't know, compassionate, resilient, authentic.
It seems like both of these sources, even though they come at it differently, they're really getting at the heart of what it means to be confident. It's not just about being fearless. It's about knowing yourself, being resilient, and taking action.
And it's interesting how they both come back to that action piece. We've touched on it throughout this whole deep dive.
Oh yeah, they both emphasize that confidence isn't something you're just born with. It's got to be cultivated through your choices, your actions, your willingness to, get out of your comfort zone.
Whether it's breaking fears down, having that growth mindset, taking those calculated risks, action seems to be the common thread.
It's about the small steps, the calculated risks, learning from everything, embracing the journey, even the messy parts, and trusting yourself.
Which brings us back to you, the listener. What stands out to you from all this? What connects with your own experiences?
What fears have you been holding on to? What goals have you been putting off because you're scared of failing?
And as you think about that, remember, confidence, it's a journey, not a destination. Each step, each challenge, each lesson, it brings you closer to that bolder, more authentic you.
And don't forget those support networks we talked about. Lean on them. Share your goals, your fears, everything. You might be surprised how much it helps.
Sometimes just saying those fears out loud can take away their power,
Absolutely. And remember, we said this before, failing isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the process. Everyone who's achieved great things, they've messed up, they've learned from it.
It's about resilience, getting back up and trying again, but this time you're a little bit wiser.
So as you go through your journey of, overcoming fear, building confidence,
Yeah.
embrace those challenges. See them as chances to learn and grow.
And remember, you are not alone in this. We're all in this together.
The more we talk about our experiences, the good and the bad, the more we empower each other to, become our boldest, most authentic selves.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question. What small step can you take today to start building your confidence? It really doesn't have to be anything big.
Maybe it's just like setting one small goal, something you can achieve.
Yeah. Or how about trying a few minutes of that mindfulness stuff the school article talked about?
Oh, right, the meditation and breathing exercises.
Exactly.
Or even just, calling a friend, someone supportive, just to talk it all through.
That can make such a difference.
It really can. And it all comes back to that idea we talked about. Remember, every journey, no matter how big,
Starts with a single step.
exactly. So what will your first step be?
We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah.
So connect with us on social media, share your thoughts, your goals, your first steps.
We're all in this together, remember?
Absolutely. And thanks for joining us for this deep dive into overcoming fear and building confidence. We'll catch you next time.